I'm so excited for today's spectrum of topics. I'm joined by Jamie Riddle. He's the director of global real estate for Patterson Companies.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Before we kind of get into the podcast, I started doing this where I'm like, oh, I talk to a lot of interesting people, share, funny stories. I thought I'd maybe share with our viewers how we met for the first time.
For sure.
Pretty interesting here. So one of our clients, Campus Health, it's an organization that helps children and adults with mental health, and they have a golf classic every year. So here's the photo of our team, our winning team here.
Yep.
Jamie, Mike, Joe, myself. We actually
Right.
won best dressed, right?
Yeah, we didn't win. We didn't win by score, but we certainly were the best dressed.
Right.
That was
Right.
that was probably more prideful than the score was. So it
Right.
was a
Remember
good
when I
time.
called you and I'm like, wait a second here. We just won best dress.
Yeah, it was awesome. I think it was your wardrobe though. We were pretty
Yeah.
down, but yeah, it
Well,
was fun.
I know, like you could see me from a mile away, remember? Because we had just met and you're like, oh yeah, Celeste with the hot pink shirt. Like
Yeah, it was awesome. No, we had a great time.
yeah, we
That
did
was
have a
fun.
great time. That was so much fun. But kind of switching gears here, tell us a little bit about your role and maybe an overview of Patterson for those that don't know or are unfamiliar.
Sure. Patterson Companies been in business for since the early 1900s. They basically have several divisions. One main division is the dental division. So a lot of people know Patterson Dental.
Yeah.
We supply really anything you go into a dentist's office and use, sit in, the tooling, a lot of the disposables, things that are used for in the dental business, we supply. So we're a distributor for those products, multiple products. We also do some support and design work for dental locations. So if a dentist wants to start a new practice up and wants to build a new building, we'll help them with the planning and design of his space, things like that. And then the other side of our business, which uh, we acquired, I think 2015, 2016 was Animal Health. So Animal Health International. So we have multiple locations across the country where we supply products, whether it's veterinary medicines, proteins, anything that you would use in production animal farming. So think about cattle, swine, those type farms. So that's a large portion of our business now is really just supplying products to take care of those animals up until the time that they are put into production. And then we have Patterson Vet. So Patterson Vet is our companion health. So think about your dogs and cats and pets that you would have at home. We also supply products very similar to the dental side of the business
Okay.
to support vets and vet offices. So we do the same type support for them as well. So kind of multifaceted now. We're not only just dental, we're cross
Yeah.
animal as well. So we have about 200 locations across the
Wow.
U.S., Canada, and the U.K. And most of our facilities on the animal health side are really distribution facilities for the products we sell. A
Okay.
little bit of retail sales space. If you look at the dental business branches, we have usually a showroom. We'll
Okay.
have a training center in those, a warehouse for parts and equipment, and then a tech service group, that organization that would work out of that facility as well. So, and those are really strategically placed in our larger markets across the U.S.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. So maybe share a little bit about your role.
Yeah,
Um,
so my role is really all things real estate. So been in Patterson almost a year now. Came on board really to create a future looking real estate strategy for Patterson with all these locations. You can imagine the amount of work that's going on across the country in all of these locations, and leases and purchases and sales and all of the transaction activity that goes along with that, but also supporting really our facilities, everything from our branding, our signage, what our interiors look like, refurbishments, just keeping things up to date from a real estate and facilities perspective. So it's really kind of multifaceted. So anything to do with the building, anything to do with the real estate property, my group pretty much handles all of that activity for us.
So
So
you are very busy.
we're very busy, yeah. So it's fun. It's very busy, but it's always changing. It's always something new. And with
Yeah,
Patterson, it's interesting because we're looking to move into the future, right? So what is the
yeah,
future like for Patterson? So having a big part in kind of creating what the go to market strategy will look like at our branches going forward.
sure.
So which is
Yeah.
fun.
That's perfect. That kind of leads into my next question. So, a lot of organizations are hybrid and, you and I have talked, and so understand that that's the case for you guys and will be for the foreseeable future. Kind of share a little bit about how that translates to you and your team's kind of real estate strategy. You kind of talked about it a little bit too,
Right,
kind of go to
absolutely.
market. Maybe let's talk a little bit, kind of dive into that in more specifics.
Right. Specifically talking about our branches, one of the big things that we're doing is really looking at all of our spaces and how we're utilizing that space. Obviously cost is always a concern, right? With inflation and with the rising cost of utilities and maintenance costs, things of that nature, that's something that we always have to keep an eye on and look at. But for us, I would say that we're focused more right now on optimization of our branches.
Okay.
So post COVID, we've leaned up a lot of our think about virtual, and a lot of our folks that are out in the field, they still come to the branches every day and work, but some of our back office support teams like finance and things like that are becoming more centralized. There's less people in the branch offices themselves that are not related to selling product or servicing our equipment. So that has left us with a little bit of excess office space in some of our branches. So the way we're looking at it is not always just to go in and try to reduce our footprint in every case. So what we're doing right now is figuring out the best way to utilize that space
Yeah.
to support our customers, improve the customer experience, actually gain a competitive edge on some of our competitors. How do we smartly use that space? So we're doing a lot of work around that, studies, and really just understanding what that looks like. Do we, we're asking ourselves questions, can we centralize certain aspects of training and things like that? But, you know, uh, Patterson is really a high touch company with our clients, with our dentists, with our vets. And so there's a lot of ongoing training that happens with new equipment that comes out. So, we're just asking ourselves questions around how do we best utilize that space? What do we do with it? We're getting a lot of input and a lot of drive from our sales teams and things to really take a hard look at that space before we just automatically give back space and say we
Yeah.
need a footprint. The other thing is converting that space to space that's more usable. So, areas where we've grown our product lines and things, we might need a larger warehouse space within that facility. So
Yeah.
we might be looking at even converting some office space into more tech space or warehouse space to better utilize it.
So that's why I think it's so fascinating, Jamie. It's because, we hear a lot of these headlines. It's, everybody's shedding real estate. But I think it's fascinating in the regards that you guys are taking this as an opportunity to really look at maybe enhancing, differentiating, looking at it a little bit differently, which I think is really unique instead of just the standard, well, we need to shed space. Um, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's really interesting.
yeah,
I
I'm
haven't
happy.
heard. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy we're taking that approach. I think it's a smart approach for us at Patterson because we are so client facing heavy in a lot of cases, and where it makes sense. Not saying it will work in every location and
Sure.
in every region, but where it does make sense, I think there's a lot to be gained by really optimizing that space that we're using and making sure that it works for us in the future. That's the big thing that we're looking to do, right? Is capitalize on, we're constantly trying to gain market share. So how do we do that? In some areas, some of our competitors have actually closed branches or moved branches away. completely. And so, where we are still in those markets, how do we seize that moment and take advantage of that? So that's really
Yeah.
some things that we're asking ourselves and working on internally.
Oh, that's fantastic. Like I said, you hear the headlines, but that's an interesting approach
It
that you guys
is.
are taking. And I
Yeah.
think, yeah,
The other challenge is, there's a little bit of misconception out there in the real estate world, because office space, right? Office space is pretty plentiful right now in the market with all the hybrid approach and post-COVID
yeah,
activities, everything's going on. But the mixed use space, which is really our target real estate space. You think mixed use, it's got a little bit of office space, but it's got warehouse, it's got conference space, it's got all these. It's really still in high demand, and it's actually rental rates are up for those type
oh, wow.
locations. In a lot of our markets, there's a lot of research and development. You think about electric cars and things that are really ramping up. There's a lot of, I would say, startup companies and small labs and things that are really seeking space like that, mixed use space where they can do
Okay.
startups, where they can do testing, where they can do, innovation. And so the market that we're in is still very strong from a real estate. So that's one thing that we're really focusing on is we have to optimize our space there because it is still expensive and rates are continue to go up. We're not really seeing a drop in demand for that space, and
Okay.
in a lot of locations and regions. I think the availability rate is less than 1 or 2% for our target, real estate market. So
Oh, wow.
we, yeah, so it's a little bit different, and our clients internally, a lot of our managers saying, well, we should be able to, reduce our rate because office space is everywhere. But if you think about the space we're in, it's not necessarily office space; it's more of a mixed use commercial space, which is still very high demand.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Because you
Mhm.
guys have to have that ability to hold some of the supplies there
That's
in,
right. You have to have
okay,
the ability. Yeah. And a
okay.
lot of our installs, we'll ship our equipment in, stage it, get it
Oh,
ready
got
for
it.
install. So there's a lot of, think about the technical aspect of it, of just getting the equipment, and then even repairs, right? So doing local repairs in the market for our dentist, if they want to send a piece of equipment in and have it repaired, or if our techs need to go back and get parts, things like that. So
Okay.
our company is really, one thing that sets us aside from our competitors is really our service organization, the Tech Edge organization. So we are the leader in the market for the service after the sale. So that we spend a lot of effort making sure that our locations house the parts and the tooling and the tech service departments that we need.
So you'd be able to service those in
That's
a,
right.
how does
Absolutely.
that kind of translate to, you kind of talked about it, the branch of the future.
Mhm.
Maybe share a little bit about like how that translates. So being able to continue to give that customer experience, kind of continue to be a differentiator for you guys, but how does that kind of translate when you're looking at the branch of the future? Is it
Yeah.
changing? Is it not? Is it staying the
Well,
same?
yeah, I think there will be some small enhancements made. Certainly, probably more opportunity for us to update some of our tech service areas and locations. For us, we cover the entire United States, so the big challenge for us is really trying to get our techs. At least close to a branch where we could, obtain those parts and take things in and put them on the workbench and be able to repair those. So if you think about remote areas out in the Midwest, you're two,
Yeah.
300 miles from a branch. So we also are thinking about what that looks like, right? Is there a sweet spot for smaller tech branches and things like that would improve our service, cut down on our travel time of our techs, give them more time turning wrenches versus driving and traveling back and forth. So those are things that we're also taking into consideration in some of our overview of the branches and what that looks like from a footprint standpoint.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you kind of touched on it a little bit just with the lack of inventory being in the mixed use space of that's primarily what makes up your portfolio. But any
Mhm.
other challenges or obstacles that you're kind of facing in the current market as you guys are looking to what I call optimize your real estate strategy?
I would say that, it's always about the rental rate for us. I mean, when you're looking at millions of square feet, a dollar a square foot here
Yeah.
and there makes a huge difference. So we're constantly measuring the market. We're constantly looking at where there's opportunity for us to, you know, take advantage of improved market rates, and we have to think of it that way. I would say that that's our largest challenge, is really just trying to offset, the rates and the utility costs and things of that nature. The other big thing that we're going to look at for a lot of our fulfillment centers, which are usually pretty large footprints across the country, is we're going to look at areas where we can take advantage of some renewable or sustainable energy, that whether it's solar type energy, or things that we can do. We've already been outfitting our locations with LED lighting and things of that nature to help
Yeah.
improve on utility costs and consumption. So, but in our larger facilities, that'll be something that we'll continue to focus on in the future, as well as offsetting some of that rising utility costs with renewable energy, or improved sustainability measures. So
That's fantastic. That's
yeah.
awesome. Any positives, like on the flip side? So challenges, obstacles, any positives right now in the current market?
Well, I think the positives for us is, the way we're looking at the footprint, and the way our competitors are looking at the footprint's probably a little bit different, and I think that might help us in the long run. Now, we are going to make adjustments and do things that are smart where it makes sense, as far as space reduction, and maybe looking at
Sure.
smaller footprints and being more lean in how we operate. But I think that for us, the competitive edge for us will be able to stay in those markets and continue to be that presence, and then evolve our technology and things that we're using in that market to better aid our customers, our dentists, and our vets. So that'll be a big driving force for us going forward.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Any advice you want to offer our viewers, as they look to kind of capitalize on this current market? Maybe, because we have a lot of people that listen that are in similar real estate positions as you at
Right.
other organizations, or just in general, they're just curious about the market. Anything that you'd kind of want to add as advice?
I would say that, look at your space. Don't look at it as it is. Think about ways to be creative with the space you have. And, it goes back to what we've been saying is, just because I might have extra office space in my facility doesn't mean it has to stay that way, right? You can spend a little bit of capital to create a space that's more workable for you, versus going out and spending the time to pick up and move everything to a smaller location. So I think just take a hard look at that and understand where you can improve the service and customer experience for your customers. Not everybody is in our business where you've got customer
Yeah.
visits coming into your locations, but I think in a market where you do have that, I think it's important to take a hard look at your space before you arbitrarily just give back space. The market's going to ebb and flow. You're going to get some positivity sometimes in rates, and sometimes you have to wait out the storm. But I would say that, just take a hard look at that, and get people involved, companies like yours, to help come up with design, and ways to improve that space, make it more workable, make it usable, make it revenue generating, right? Is there
Yeah.
something you can do to drive revenue, or help your customer experience? So that would be my advice to a lot of the people in markets similar to ours.
Okay. That's awesome. I know we're seeing a lot of that, and we always encourage organizations. It's just different from our chair,
Yeah,
versus when it's
exactly.
coming from you saying, look, I think you need to take a look at this. But we are seeing that organizations are definitely creating some efficiencies with space and leaning to our organization to try to continue to look at that, right? And make some
Absolutely.
adjustments in that.
Yeah, I think a few $1,000s is well spent to do some analysis and some study and get some ideas on the board, right? Before you just arbitrarily make a decision to either cut space or move locations, things like that. So I would say that would be my recommendation in areas where folks have the ability to do that.
Yeah. So some may not know, but you've worked with our organization in the past. I figured it's a good time to maybe say or ask, what's one thing you would say to our viewers if they haven't worked with our firm or our process being a little bit unique, being design build before? What's one thing you would say if they were looking at potentially working with us and or just curious about our firm?
Yeah, I would say, I do have past experience working with your teams, and I think that for me, the advantage comes in with the design to build aspect being very seamless, right, within the organization. The teams working together up front, you've got your construction guys in the room with the designers. I just think it creates less of a challenge with communication, improves that you're actually designing some of the constructability into the process, right? And so that tends to be an area where folks get the aha moments. You wind up with a lot of change orders, things that the design team want can't really be produced in the field as well as or as cheap as what some folks think it can. And I think that having all that under one roof, those folks collaborating with each other up front, making sure that what you're going in to is from a design aspect can be built and can be built for the price that and stay within your budget. So I think that's been a huge advantage. The multiple aspects and even down to the furniture side of the business, right? Being able to work that into the design and knowing the that space as well, and having that I would say experience level within the organization is a huge advantage, because I think it kind of wraps up everything into one team, one organization, and it from the outside looking in, it's pretty seamless.
Yeah, well, thank you. It doesn't get any better than that recommendation. I mean, so if you don't hear it from me, I mean, I basically say the same thing, and it's one thing
Right,
that, we try to say, but it's true. Everybody at our
yeah,
organization is very passionate about the process.
right.
It is unique. But doesn't get any better than
Yeah,
that,
I've
folks.
done
Yeah.
I've done hundreds of projects in my career, and I've seen I've lived the pain of working through change orders because the
Yeah.
GC wasn't on board with the design team, right? And there's just a lot of unknowns. It takes extra good communication, and even with that, there's always aha moments when you don't have that seamless communication, and
For
and
sure.
and I think it's certainly an advantage to have it all under one roof and all within one organization. I would recommend folks looking into that type of a scenario for small and large jobs. So
Oh, thank you, Jamie. That was very kind of
sure.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just appreciate you taking the time to talk about it. I think, as we were kind of preparing for this podcast, one of the things that really stuck out with me and is that you guys are taking the time, you and your team are developing this strategy of looking at your real estate differently. I think it's fascinating that you guys are using this to really differentiate yourselves at Patterson and kind of continue to drive market share. So kudos to you, your team. I think you guys are gonna see that just a lot of reward from that in the next, several years, so.
Well, we hope so, and we certainly are going to put the effort into looking at it from that viewpoint. So we appreciate future support that you guys can provide for us, and we're excited about where it's going.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you.
All right, yeah, it's a pleasure speaking with you.